Hello, everyone. Welcome to Contact Lost, the Polish podcast about Warhammer 40k. I am your host, Tweak or Tomek, and here with me is my partner in crime and co-host, Michał, otherwise known as Joker. Hi, dude.
Hello, welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back is, I guess, the right phrase for those of you who used to listen. You probably recognize the voice, but you must have seen that there was quite a lengthy break between the ninth and the current 10th episode of our show. And this was because I've decided to take, a longer break from the hobby. I think I dived too deep into it and I needed a break to do other things. But gray plastic is a hell of a drug, so I'm back.
Yeah,
With
to
that,
be fair, COVID
yeah,
didn't help. We had lots of restrictions, so we didn't really have a playing community, or at least not very actively. So there was much less incentive to actually be involved with lists, with playing, and taking part in tournaments, and further to that, making a podcast about it.
yeah, very much. Plus, I mean, it was quite, I would say, layered. But yeah, it was the time when my army sort of stopped working. Then I also found out I need to take care of my health a little bit more. So I decided to focus on that rather than spend time on recording the podcast and so on. But as I said, the the drug is quite strong, and you cannot really get it out of the system completely ever. It got me back, and I'm coming back. And with that, I would like to announce a small competition with a prize. And the competition is quite simple. I would like you guys, our listeners, to give me to leave a comment on YouTube and to subscribe to the channel, of course, but to leave for me a comment that would include some pros and cons of the armies that I'm going to name at the end of the episode that I think are my top picks that I cannot make a decision about. And there's going to be a prize, and the prize is going to be a wonderful pro painted miniature of a chaplain that you will be able to find in the link under this video on YouTube. It's from a fantastic painting studio from Poland that I'm going to link for you as well. So have a look at the miniature. I haven't. That's the last remain of my army of Grey Knights. So I've been using that chaplain for a Grey Knights chapter, but you can use it for any chapter. The size of the miniature is such that you can use it as a normal miniature or a Primaris miniature. And if I would estimate it costs somewhere around 300 PLN, which is what, like almost 70 euros, between 60 and 70 euros. So it seems like a nice prize for giving me a hint, but still, the condition is you need to leave an interesting, informative comment, and you have to subscribe to the channel. And I'll name a couple of armies at the end of this video. Oh, sorry, this recording, and then uh, let's say when we go through those armies in the series of next episodes, after that I'll make up my decision and I'll choose the lucky person who gets the prize, and we can ship it to anyone. So yeah, watch this space to hear about the armies that I'm focusing on, and stay with us for future episodes where we will analyze the armies, discuss pros and cons, whether they fit the meta or not, and whether it's worth taking them up or not. Right.
So will it be someone chosen at random, or you want people to get to you with
So
their comments?
I think I'll do it at random. So I'll provide uh, the armies. Let's say I don't know, 5 armies, and we're going to do 5 episodes about them. But in those episodes, we're going to use, or you actually are going to use your best judgment to help me make that decision. But then, if the comments contain anything interesting, or maybe even a description of an army that we don't talk about, but it's convincing or something, um, I'll do a random draw online. We can do it with a video to show that it's legit, and then yeah, that whoever is chosen will get the prize wherever they are from. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about a competition that took place last weekend here in our region in the north of Poland. A tournament that has a long running history, and one that I think even Goonhammer inquired about and provided some information. Do you know anything about that, Joker?
Yeah, I do. They did contact us. I gave them a link to the list and sent them the top 4 ones, so they could have a look through it. And the tournament did appear on the weekly analysis of tournaments around the globe.
That's awesome. That's fantastic to hear that the Polish scene is becoming, more visible to the people from outside of Poland. So, without further ado, I think I can safely call you the main organizer of the event, right? You were responsible for bringing all the people and all the efforts together, right?
Yeah, I think so too.
Right. So what are the biggest challenges when you organize an event like that? Because I think it didn't happen last year. So there was great hunger to have that because it's like an annual tradition that Heresy happens somewhere in September. So yeah, there were problems last year. What changed this year that made you want to organize it, and what were the potential issues that a tournament organizer could encounter?
Well, I mean, I think that it was pretty much the same as last year. So the biggest risk was the COVID restrictions, whether there are going to be any or not. So last year there was a lot more uncertainty, and I think we also couldn't do it from the restrictions perspective even during the summer. I can't remember what the restrictions were back then exactly, but I know that it was hard and it was just risky. It's not a comfortable situation to be in when you collect the ticket fees from people that want to participate. You pull in prizes from the sponsors, etc., and you organize the venue, get into an agreement with a vendor to provide food, etc., and then having to cancel all of that and trying to return the monies, etc. That's just it's tiring, and I decided not to do that. It was too much of a risk. And this year, I think there was a bit more certainty with the restrictions we've had. Although there was a time where I thought the tournament was gonna be pulled off, but fortunately that didn't happen. And despite that, I took what measures I could. So even though I did decide to try ask some of the wonderful companies that in the end did support us for something we could give away to the participants, I only unpacked the packages on the last day of the tournament just in case I need to send them back. So that was definitely the biggest challenge in my opinion.
Okay. COVID last year got in the way. Do you have any piece of advice for people who want to organize a tournament, like what they should pay attention to, what they need to be careful about?
Let's see. I mean, you definitely need to have a venue. It's definitely good for that venue to have ventilation, actually quite a bit of space, so that people can move around freely during games when playing. What else do you need to pay attention to? It would be good to have that venue close to some hotel, or preferably in a hotel, because that's like the full package for the participants. Always nice to have food organized somewhere, either get a vendor to bring something in, some takeouts, or just let the people know what's close and where they can get a snack, and also make sure that there is a break, because if for that snack, because free games during a day, that's approximately 9 hours in itself. And then you need to add time for registration in the morning and have some breaks between the games to move around the venue, etc. So I think that's definitely very important. What else do you need to pay attention to?
I mean, did you do anything specific to tackle, COVID restrictions? Was there like, did people have to wear masks, or did they have to disinfect their hands or anything like that? Did you have to provide this, or did people bring this with them? What was
Well,
the situation
we've
like?
had the what's it called? The fluid to disinfect. It's escaping me right now.
Yeah, whatever, the hand lotion thingy.
Yes, let's call it lotion. The hand lotion thingy. So we've had that in place. I mean, uh, in the rules package, I also mentioned that everyone should be prepared with masks, etc. But well, we during the day we didn't pay that much attention to it, to be honest, because obviously we didn't have that many restrictions in place during this weekend, and
Hmm.
so far it looks like we're not gonna get any more in Poland. So yeah, here's hoping we can get the tournament scene back up and running.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be gold. All right. So
So
let's get. Go on.
if I may, so to summarize, I don't think you can really prepare for COVID. I mean, obviously that's something that depends on where you are in the world, but here we have had situations where restrictions just seem to come in for they're announced and they are implemented the next day after they're announced. So there's no way you can prepare for that.
Yeah,
And
quite
I've been
unpredictable.
speaking with some of the guys that did attend the tournament, and they were saying they were even a bit nervous and checking if I've posted anything like at midnight before the tournament started, that whether the tournament's pulled off or if it's going ahead.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, it did go ahead.
crazy times. So crazy times, crazy measures, I would say. But all in all, it went well. I think from what I've heard, from what I read, uh, the competition was a great success. So let's get to the nitty gritty of it, because I didn't exactly check the description of the tournament itself. I've seen the summaries, I've seen Tourney Keeper, I've seen the images, but I haven't checked the rules. So usually in the past, uh, Heresy has been known for uh, you know either a specific points requirement or some shenanigans with the lists. Was there anything in place this year, or did you keep it fairly straightforward?
No, I've decided to abandon those ideas and keep it straightforward. So just to give a bigger picture, in the previous years, we usually had a 1666 points format, most commonly, I think. And then you were allowed to bring two lists, although they did have to have a lot in common. So they'd have to have the same warlord, for example, the same what we'd call a bulk detachment. So the detachment that had the biggest amount of points that would take up in your list, and many other little notes just to not make it so that people would take two completely different armies, because that was not the idea. And then before entering each and every game, you'd pick in secret which list you're going to take, and so would your opponent. So it did allow for some sort of flexibility, but in the end, I think it just gave more options to the stronger factions anyway. Although that's debatable. More importantly, though, with the most recent releases GW are giving us in 9th edition, souping armies is becoming like less and less worth it. So taking that in regard as well, I just thought there's no need for making all these little rulesies and making things more complicated. Especially that I feel like quite a lot of people didn't like that from the ones that would come. And after such a hiatus, I don't think, or more like I think, that keeping it simple was just the better idea.
Yeah, what's the situation, by the way? Because also to provide like a bigger picture, Poland, I would say the Polish, or at least as far as I remember, because remember I haven't played for a year, or have had any interest in the scene for a year. But the Polish Warhammer 40k community, like the core of it, is very competitive, and there are many people who either aspire to the national team or are simply uh, uh, national team members. And Heresy is one of the tournaments where they come to, you know, uh, try out new ideas, try out their lists, and so on and so on. As far as I know, last year the European Championship, whatever it is called now, I think it didn't happen. It was postponed. Did it happen this year?
No, it didn't.
Right. So it's going to
Got postponed
probably
again.
So it's going to probably happen next year. Well, who knows where we are with COVID, but fingers crossed that it does happen.
Yeah.
So the Three City Heresy is like the proving grounds for some concepts, some ideas, and so on. Well, could you confirm that it was like that this year as well?
Well, I'd say even more so than before because of the change in format. How it's completely in line with what WTC plays. Although obviously you have to remember it's a team tournament, so the lists aren't exactly the same as you would take them for a team tournament, and yeah, now and we're playing the same format that you're now playing all over the world, pretty much. If you're talking about serious competitions, right? So that was in a way also the goal, and looks like it's proving itself. So we did get that mention with the guys at Goonhammer, for example, and yeah, I think it just brings more interest to the scene itself. Although with the place that heresy takes place in the space-time continuum, so it happens pretty much is the first GT we have in Poland after the WTC. So it's not really a testing ground for next year for next year's competition. It's
early days.
Yeah, very much.
Let's focus on, I think, I don't know, probably the top four lists that you've provided to Goonhammer as well. And maybe let's start from the fourth place. So in fourth place we had Michał Bania Rumiński, so a known player, I think, from a pro painting studio as well, and he brought his amazing Chaos Demons army. Is that correct?
That is correct. So yeah, he's a fellow Chaos player. I was rooting for him because of that list. I love Monster Mash style lists, and that's what he took. So yeah, definitely was rooting for him, and very happy to see him finish so high.
Yeah, so fourth place is quite an achievement at this tournament. So let's go through the list, but maybe I'll give you the pleasure of doing it. Do you have it somewhere at hand, or?
It's not a complicated list, so I do actually remember it.
All right. So what's in it?
Yeah, so you had the 2 Slaneshi patrol detachments, which gave you in total 20 demonettes, 3 keepers of secrets, and Shalaxi, so the named keeper of secrets. And then a third patrol, which had Belacor, a Lord of Change, and 20 Bloodletters, and I think 5 Furies, just to round it up to 2,000 or close to 2,000 points.
Okay, so you know, when I stopped playing, it was basically the time when the Necron Codex came out, which means I've missed some, from what I see, some pretty important and pretty big releases, like Belacor, for example. So what does this monster do?
Well, he's fairly tanky, to be fair, because he has an innate -1 to hit, You can't reroll the hit roll against him. He has a -1 to wound in shooting and a 4+ invuln, toughness 7 and 16 wounds on top of that. So yeah, fairly resilient. He smashes face as well. He has 2 attack modes, if you will. So he's got a smash kind of thing where he ignores the invulns and use D3 + 3 damage. And then he has a sweep attack as well, where you get 2 hit rolls for each attack that he has. So he's also got his own psychic discipline now, although it mainly supports his own like army of renown. So to give you a better understanding, that's something that in 7th we used to have formations. So I'd say the armies of renown are something along the lines of that. And then in 8th we had those Vigilus detachments, formations, or however you want to call them. I can't remember what they were called exactly, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
So yeah, that psychic discipline mainly buffs that army, but he does still do fairly well in regular demon armies, especially now that he has, instead of not having any of the Chaos Gods keywords, he now has all 4 of them. So if there is a Slaneshi character nearby from a Slaneshi detachment, he can advance and charge as well. If he's in range of that character's slow side, he can benefit from the psychic powers if need be. You can use the fight again Corn stratagem on him. So yeah, he's quite a bit of a beat stick and resilient at that. Quite a good unit.
Yeah, it sounds like something that you don't want in your face, definitely. But something that you will get in your face probably at some point. So how does this army, how does this list work or play to the mission? Because I see Be'lakor, Lord of Change, Keeper of Secrets, Shalaxi, that's like 5 huge monsters, and then what, 3 or 4? No, sorry, 4 other units that do something, maybe 5. Because there are what, 2 units of Furies, 2 units of Demonettes, and a unit of Bloodletters. How does this list play to the mission?
Well, the big monsters are fast, so you get in the face of your opponent. They have to deal with them because otherwise they're going to get swept off the table. So you can close your opponent in the deployment zone early on. And then you've got Demonettes to hold your backfield objectives. You have fast Furies that can do either retrieve Octarius data or help get engaged on all fronts. And then you've got the Bloodletters dropping in, getting a certain charge almost. And also with that objective secured, they can nick an objective if needed, wherever on the table really, because you can obviously deep strike them. So despite not really having that much bodies, you can play to the mission fairly well. And obviously, and you've got that Lord of Change that can safely do a warp ritual or that kind of jazz.
Okay. And well, again, 5 monstrosities that seem fairly difficult to hide. I mean, it depends on the tables, which is another aspect of the tournament that I will be asking about. But first, how does this list work if you don't start? Is it at a disadvantage, or it doesn't really matter?
Well, that obviously depends on the matchup. If you don't start, you don't have too many obscuring terrain, and your opponent has lots of shooting. Well, then you probably end up crying and not doing much. But it's still quite a lot of wounds to chew through. So we've already mentioned how Be'lakor manages himself defensively. The Lord of Change is resilient as well, with a 3+ invuln and a 6+ feel no pain from the exalted trait, and you can get a -1 to hit on top of that using the terrain as well. You've got the Keepers of Secrets, so they can have a 4+ invuln, one have -1 to wound. So they're not that easy to kill, but if you don't start, then well, it gets much tougher.
Okay. And now, if I were to ask you for your expert opinion, I mean, you've sported a similar list a year ago when we played together, so you should know quite a lot about it. If I were to face you today playing that list, what missions should I take to have, I don't know, maybe not an easy time, but to secure some points.
Playing against it. Well,
Mhm.
probably anything that would help you maximize your points killing the big stuff, so you can double tap on Abhor the Witch and then bring them down. So essentially, each monstrosity you kill nicks you 5 points at that point,
Sounds good.
together from both of the missions. And what else to take from that?
I got you with that question.
Yeah, a bit. Potentially, if you've got any codex ones, then maybe that. But I don't know all of them for the factions that got a codex already. What else can you go for?
I mean, does it make any sense to target, the little units, the like Furies, Demonettes, Bloodletters? Does it make sense to pick any objective that would, give you points because of killing those little ones?
No.
Probably not,
But if
right?
you
It's
can
always the
nick them
player.
and get rid of them reliably without putting too much effort, then you should definitely do that, because obviously that's the way he gets primary points.
And I see that, Banya went with Furies over Nurglings. I'm actually surprised not to see any Nurglings in the list. So, any ideas why he went for Furies instead of Nurglings?
They're cheaper in points,
Yeah. Oh,
faster, and
mhm.
they're an infantry unit, which Nurglings aren't, so they can do actions, which is important for
Right.
secondaries.
Okay. So it looks like this list basically has everything, and it's really well thought through. Like I remember last year when we played a similar list, there were still Nurglings. Probably those tweaks have been made to be able to play it to the mission more, which is great. So a fantastic list. Any final thoughts about it? Or can we move on?
I think we can move on. I can just underline that I love it, and I'm really happy that Banya finished so high with that list.
Right. By the way, guys, you might find it interesting. As I said, Banya himself is a pro painter from a pro painting studio, and his army is gorgeous. So I will include a link down below under the video, so you can go to the photos from this tournament, and I'm sure you will be able to tell which army is his just by the quality of his painting. So do have a look. I strongly encourage it because the army is beautiful.
He did win the Player's Choice Best Painted, and I do have photos of them, just have not posted them yet on Facebook, but definitely will.
Awesome. All
Or
right. So
maybe
yeah,
they'll already be online by the time this podcast is released.
right. So we'll try to work it into the um, the video, or well, the description of the video for your convenience. All right. Good. So next up, we have Jakub Vladdi Podruczny. So Vladdi is known in the community as the player who could win with a piece of wood or with a stick, with anything. He
The
usually
saying is it's
Mhm.
with a stable door,
Oh
I
yes,
think.
sorry. Exactly, that's what we say in Poland. And he is a staple on the Polish national team usually. So playing against him is a huge challenge, and I'm not surprised actually to see him playing a less common army. And from what I've seen, from the readings I've done about the current state of the meta and so on, Chaos is not really up there, or is it?
No, not really. They're still desperately waiting for that second wound update, and apparently they're not getting it this year either. So that's been already over a year since GW announced that power armors are getting their second wound, and the Chaos Space Marines are, I think, the last ones to get them, and still pretty sad.
Right.
But yeah, well, it's Vladdi, right? So he's one of the best players, hands down. You have to give it to him, and he always comes up with some inconvenient lists, and this is another iteration of one.
Right. So we were able to pull some strings, and we actually got some footage of Vladdi talking about his army, especially for you guys to delight you. So, Vladdi, the mic is yours.
The list was published actually very recently on the Gunhammer with the report from Free City Heresy, so it's available there if someone wants to get into details. There's a lot of infantry there, the small units of infantry, jump infantry, it's raptors, talons, it's basically Emperor Children, Ultra Detachment, and super heavy Vextrix, Renegade Knights detachment with just small knights for some fire support. And the army is based around scoring. It's not exactly a kill army. It's basing around scoring objectives in this edition. There's a lot of fast-moving infantry. There's a lot of a bit of shenanigans, like being able to make a sure charge from the reserves with Imperial Children stratagems, strike first on all of the MSU units in the list. And there's some fire support. There are 3 units that are good to the last. I mean the knights units. So the list is designed to play this edition, not exactly survive against those top armies out there like Dark Eldar or AdMech, but it is able to score missions, to do a lot of stuff on the table. It has a lot of options because it has a lot of infantry, a bit of firepower. That there's one thing about this list: there are a lot of power multipliers. I can buff one unit to a level that to a point that it performs far better that it should, based on its characteristic, basically based on the datasheet. With prescience, with some Imperial Children stratagems, the unit overperforms when played aggressively. When I'm in control, when I have an initiative in the game, then most of the units overperform during the game. So they basically not too powerful on their own, but combined with all the rules that the army has, it simply hits strong and at some vital points on the table to get the objective, to take objective from the enemy, to stop them from scoring points. And this power multiplier rule works also for the small knights, from Renegade Knights with Vextrix house that gives you 1 reroll to hit, 1 reroll to wound. Being able to overcharge weapons, I can give my war dog units +2 to move. I can make them do things on the table that they otherwise would not be able to do. So I can, for example, the simplest thing is to overcharge Lightning Lock to give it strength 7 and 2 damage, which actually almost triples its performance on the tabletop. So basically, this army is based on small expendable units that you can buff very strongly to make it perform much better than it may appear at the first sight. And it was designed to be able to stand its ground against Dark Eldar when the Dark Eldar came out, and they are still very powerful, and but it works quite good against any other army, and it is also designed to be able to be more or less a good army on team tournaments. When you have a choice, when you take 5 army on 8 against 8 team tournaments, you have 5 armies that are obvious choices, 6 armies maybe obvious choices, and then you are left with two last armies that you have to think through what you want to take. And this army fills that spot. It's an army that can take any of the top armies, even AdMech if it starts. And so it was also designed with a thought like that to be able to play to fill that last spots into team tournaments with the army that can do well against other top armies. The army list is set to it's built in such a way that I can always retake 3 missions against anyone, on any mission, on any table. I can always take 3 missions to the last that I take on the small knights units. There are 2 models each. There are separate units on the battlefield, so it's difficult to kill them all. So they always bring me some points, even if I have no idea. I can't figure out any other mission to take. I can always take to the last because I have this to the last on those knights that usually survive till the end of the game, especially these 2 more axis units that keep in the back. So basically that's the first choice if you don't have anything else to take. The second one is obviously either engage or stranglehold, depending on the mission, depending on the opponent. If the opponent has a lot of obstacle units that that are difficult to push through, like I don't know, AdMech blobs or things like that, then you take engage. And if not, if you feel comfortable with taking 3 objectives and just make it more than the opponent has, then Strangled is the way to go, because it's basically easier to do if you can take those 3 objectives, and those 3 objectives will be more than opponent has, and you feel comfortable with that you actually can do that, then Stranglehold is better because it brings more points. But Engage is a safe choice for any game. You will always do some points on it. And the third one, this army is designed to be able to make reasonably safely the Octarius data. I have 8 units of small units of infantry. 6 of them are jumping units, so they're basically, if I have no other idea what to do, I can always go for retrieve Octarius data and score at least 8 points every game. But in most situations, I can do more. Most of my units are a fragile one. They are very good. I can multiply their hitting abilities to some crazy levels with Imperial Children stratagems, with Prescience, with Veterans of the Long War. But when I am on the receiving end, they will die very quickly. There are 1 wound Space Marines with plus save, and they die extremely quickly. So if my opponent has a fast-moving army, it can hit me before I can hit him, before I can plan the game. If someone plays very aggressively, trying to just wipe me out in 3 turns, then the game becomes very difficult for me, because my army is more careful positioning, careful planning the game, taking opponents from the objectives, scoring my objectives for the 5 turns. This is what this army is based about. It's focused around.
Thanks, dude. That was very helpful. And still, 3rd place, very strong, very high, with a list like that. Quite an achievement. Let's move on to the top 2 lists.
Although, to be fair, we don't have an actively, competitively playing person in our area that sports AdMech. So we don't know too much about it. And I guess you could call us lucky in that regard, because they are absolutely crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. It goes without saying. However, we want our listeners to benefit from this podcast. That's why we invited the man himself, the guy who took the 2nd place on this year's Heresy, Gogi. And let's allow him to talk what motivated him to take that army composition. Gogi, the mic is yours.
Hi, I'm Gogi. A few words about my roster for the 3-city Heresy tournament.
I took second place in the tournament and was asked to introduce her closer. The core of my list is the Lucius Battalion, due to the three very strong elements that the Adeptus Mechanicus Codex offers. Passive Dogma, giving +1 armor save against attacks with damage 1. We have one of the best relics in the Codex, Solar Flare, which allows you to teleport a Skitari unit once per game, and a very strong Warlord trait that gives 1 unit of Transhuman. In my battalion, I placed 3 large units of Skitari, the main strike force, which can be buffed defensively, Transhuman, ignore AP, enemy AP1, AP2, and offensively, improved AP in shooting, automatic wounding on 5+ to hit on Vanguard Skitari, and reroll once to hit and to wound from Skitari Marshal. In the list, I have 2 ability shoot after fallback. In addition, it should be remembered that this are unit with the objective secure ability, which is very important in the 9th edition. In addition to them, there are 5 infiltrators in the battalion, whose task is to push back the enemy Alpha Strike or perform a secondary mission, put an additional banner, or make a scramble, Octarius data. And we also have the 5 Cerberus Riders, a unit equipped with sniper rifles, whose task is to kill popular low-endurance enemies heroes, such as Canones in the Sister of Battle and Succubus in the Drukhari army. Cerberus has moved before the game, which allows them to play a role similar to the infiltrators, quickly get outside my deployment, blocking Alpha Strike, Deep Strike, etc. I also have 2 small Skitari units here, the purpose of which is only to perform secondaries. I put these small units always to strategic reserve by 1 command point. And the battalion is complemented by 2 Fusilade planes, which by dropping bombs deal very well with horde units such as Necron Warriors or Demon units. And while the above idea of basing the army on Lucius is quite popular, the second detachment is the original idea of using the data horde custom forward, magna bonded alloys, and servo-focused auguries, which provides a vehicle with feel no pain on 6+, and Cognis weapon has full reroll to hit in half range. I played something like this using the Engine War in 8th edition, and now I'm developing this idea in the 9th edition, following advice of my friends, of course. In this detachment, we have 4 Alios Riders equipped with Cognis Las Cannons, and 2 Stratoraptors planes that also have Cognis Las Cannons and Cognis Heavy Stabbers, supported by engine steer that gives 1 or 2 models +1 to hit in command phase. Basically, 1 model take 1 +1 to hit, and from 1 command point engine steer can give 2 model +1 to hit. This detachment is designed to destroy enemy armored and elite models. The concept of the roster is therefore based on 4 planes, each equipped with a chaff launcher, providing 1 damage reduction. That put pressure on the enemy, can start an attack from the first turn, regardless of the number of the terrain on the table, and all this is supported by 60 Skitaris buffed by heroes. The roster contains a balanced mix of anti-infantry and anti-tank weapons, deals a lot of mortal wounds, bombers, riders, and defends very well. Defensive buffs imposed by heroes and feel no pain on vehicles from the second detachment. It is difficult for me to talk about the weaknesses of the roster that I managed to win all 5 games at the tournament, but there are few elements that can be mentioned for sure. First, there are rosters that can destroy 2 free planes in the first round, like attack bike from Ravening, Retributors in the army of the Sister of Battle, True Balls and Dark Lances in Drukhari list. When it happens, we must play forces which are reduced about 300-400 points, and more difficult is engage of all fronts, my favorite secondary mission. The second problem is the lack of the counter to psionics. If the enemy army of Eldars and Grey Knight want to cast 5, 6, 7, 8 spells 5 inches from me, they do it with no problems. It's so sad. The third element is related to the second. Spam mortal wounds aiming at everything except vehicles is very effective, especially Skitari troops did that very quickly because mortals avoid transhuman and ignore AP2. So that's all from me. Thanks for having me and see you next time.
And thanks, Gogi, for those amazing insights. I mean, finding out about a more non-standard Skitari list is always of value. So even more so, thank you for sending us this material. And this brings us to the last, or should I actually say, the first list of this year's Heresy, piloted by Majson. You can see the list on Goonhammer. I will link the article below. But again, thanks to some amazing connections, we were able to get some footage of Majson talking about his list, his choices, his motivations to run this. So let's listen closely.
Hi there. I was asked by Joker and Twig to tell a couple of words about my AdMech list, which I have used during the last 3CD Heresy tournament. So let's start. So my list was based on some kind of a standard approach for building AdMech army, which is currently used in Polish competitive scene. It combines a highly mobile planes with mass Skitari Rangers, some supporting units, using all the good stuff that comes from the Codex Adeptus Mechanicus. I used 2 detachment build. I got 1 battalion from Lucius. Despite the nerf, I still believe it's one of the best forge rolls available for us. And Outrider detachment of Mars, which gives us some interesting tricks to and of course access to canticles. My Lucius battalion is my main scoring and board control detachment. I use here 2 squads of Rangers and 1 squad of Vanguards. All of them are 20 modules per unit. I support them with 2 squads of Sicarians, Infiltrators, and also 2 Physilaves goes into this detachment. While my Mars Outrider detachment uses 2 squads of Cerberus Riders, and 4 Iron Striders, they're organized in units 2, 1, and 1. In the Mars detachment, I also use the 2 Stratoraptors, and all of my planes are equipped with chaff launchers. So how does the list work? It's meant to kill the opponent off the table as soon as possible, and it's super effective at it. All of the units here has very high firepower. They can work really well, especially under the buffs from the characters. The list is mobile thanks to the teleportation from Solar Flare and planes which can reach every every place on the table, and this all is supported by Cerberus Riders and Sicarians, which basically deploys either in front of the opponent or just in the middle objectives. If the list starts the game, basically it can destroy a lot of opponent's units, including those that are hidden behind some ruins. So there's really no safe space to hide. Also, if I do not start the game, then I can just use defensive doctrines to get a +1 to armor saves on every unit of my army, and if the opponent decides to go on a full scale and try to kill my units, then they're exposed to all of my firepower next turn. Apart from the raw firepower, there are some minor tricks in the list. One trick worth mentioning is Cerberus Riders and Wrath of Mars combo. Basically, Cerberus Riders can ignore a lookout search rule, and combined with Wrath of Mars, they deal 2 mortal wounds on every 6th wound. While it's not that statistically effective, the opponent always needs to take this into consideration. They always need to think that one lucky shot can just kill the crucial character from the army. Of course, we also have some defensive abilities, which are transhuman-like ability and ignore AP -1/-2 ability, which combined can make one of our Skitari blobs super durable. In general, this list is quite straightforward to operate. Even if someone made some kind of a mistake, it can usually be mitigated. For example, we got the ability to fall back and shoot. We can always teleport ourselves out of the combat and also shoot. Moreover, our weapons are also very, very effective. For example, last cannons, they can get all the rerolls necessary from the Canticle and also the Mars rules. While dealing D3 +3 damage, they can just one-shot nearly every elite model in the game. Okay, so that was just a brief description of my list. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.
Cheers, Majson, for that insight. And yeah, congratulations one more time, and best of luck in the future with that very list. So we get we had 2 flavors of AdMech in this tournament, and taking the second and the first place only shows how strong this army is. But I would also like to draw everyone's attention to the lists that didn't place as high, but still had some reliable results. I see that the 5th place was taken by Michał Duda, who came with the Aeldari, and that's the only Aeldari list in that tournament.
Yep.
What's going on with Aeldari then? Because when I was...
It's not the only one. Actually, there was one more Aeldari list. Fairly similar, I think. But I'm not sure if it sported a Skyrunner Conclave.
So what happened to Aeldari? They were like a reigning force through the majority of 8, I think, and then now they seem to be gone. What did I miss?
They have a really old book. They've got an old book. They don't really have units that are particularly good at objective grabbing, so to say. So pretty much the units that are good are the units that have been good all this time. So it's still Dark Reapers, Shining Spears, and maybe that Conclave.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, it's all known tricks, and some of the armies that have got new codexes just play the missions better and maybe blow them out of the table.
Hmm.
Free
Yeah,
that,
so
but you know, you still see that in the hands of a very good player, they can get fairly high.
yeah, especially if you
And-
don't see them for a while, then
And
people
to be
tend
fair, I think Duda also won the Alpine Cup singles that happened early on in the month. So
So this only proves that the old saying is right, that it's the wizard that is important, not the wand. Right. So that's the tournament. Any final thoughts or anything else that you want to add about Heresy?
I could add one thing about the lists, and I think you agree that we are a bit rusty on this topic. There
A
wasn't
bit.
much expertise in this expertise.
Yeah, we're sorry for that, but we're relying on our listeners. We're both sort of getting back into it either because of COVID or a longer hiatus. So, but we're getting there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Mm.
Definitely.
I think this might be the right place to also thank our sponsors. Please make sure to check out the link down below that lists all of them. This year, I wasn't there to support you with securing some sponsorships, but I see you've done an amazing job doing it yourself. So just to name a couple in completely random order, but I think it's important to do this. So we had Battle Models, we had Futurex from Gdynia, an amazing shop. We had Den of Imagination, so the painting studio that Bania is from. Bits of War, Playmate.pl, Vanaheim.pl. Let me just scroll through the site because the list is really hefty. So GameMat.eu, of course, how could I forget? Micro Art Studio, The Army Painter. I think we also had Ryba Studio Artwork. That's our local painter who also offered some prizes. Paintforge and Dragonstore.pl. Last but not least, Puppetswar.eu. With amazing bits and parts of models. I mean, that's an amazing result to bring so many sponsors in, and I think the tables were heavy with prizes because
And
it's a good
nobody
one.
walked away empty-handed. I think that's worth underlining. The sponsors have really pulled through. The support we've received was really amazing, and like I said, there was a gift for everyone.
Yeah, that's
Even I got something, even
that's
though I
great.
didn't play.
That's fantastic. No, it's really kudos to our sponsors. You can check who they are on our Facebook page that has them with both Polish and English descriptions, so you can find out who they are, what they do, and how long they've been supporting us because we have some long-running partnerships with those companies. So do have a look. Well, boy, I have a lot of links to put in that description. But also to sort of wrap it up, as I mentioned earlier, I have the intention of doing some episodes around potential armies that I will choose one from to actually play. So I promised you that I would name 5 armies that I'm interested in that I could potentially pick up and learn to play. So these armies are, and I would like to hear from you about them. These armies would be, first of all, Space Wolves, just because I like Space Wolves. I used to play them in 7th for a brief moment, and I had a blast. So now with all the Primaris stuff, it sounds even more interesting.
And
The second,
especially if you've
Mhm.
had any success with Thunderwolf Cavalry, let Tweak know.
Yeah, because I for some obscure reason, I really feel like playing something that includes cavalry, be it on wolves, horses, or bikes. So that's why the second on the list would be White Scars. But again, I don't want to only focus on special Space Marines. So there are some others. I was also thinking about Guard because I actually have never played that army. I played plenty against it. I know what it can do. I love the models, but I've never actually played it myself. So it would be like a completely new experience, and I'm very much into that. Next up are Tyranids and Genestealer cults. I have no experience there, only playing against it. with Vladdi, for example. It was always a pain in the ass to fight them, but since I've never played them myself, they seem like a natural candidate to pick up. The models are absolutely gorgeous, so I would be delighted to try that as well. And last but not least, Chaos Demons. And without any specific affiliation to any of the demons, I used to play a bit of Nurgle in the past, but it's hard to name an army I haven't played outside of these that I've already mentioned. So Chaos Demons in any flavor, also on the table out there. So guys, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Please leave a comment under this recording on YouTube. I will be also posting the link to the recording on Reddit. So in like competitive Warhammer. So you can find us there. Leave a comment there. I'll be checking it. We'll have a series of episodes to tackle every single of those armies. We'll try to bring in guests who are more expert than us and who will be able to provide more insight into how those armies play, where they are in the meta right now, how they play the mission, or how to counter those armies. So what I, as a player, will have to be aware of. And with that in mind, I guess I'll conclude the episode. Until next time, then. Thanks for listening, and bye, everyone. Bye, Joker.
Bye bye.